Now, on to opening statements. Candidates, remember, you only have 2 minutes to deliver your opening remarks. We will begin with Mr. Lyndon Johnson.
I am Lyndon Baines Johnson, nominee for independent ticket for President of the United States of America. I have promised a dream to you, and that dream I will fulfill. I have nothing but gratitude for your support for me today. It has surpassed anything that I can dream of. Please, now is the time I want to give back to you, the American people. I have served you in every way that I can, with the Great Society implementing numerous social programs that still aid you today. And for your rights, I only wish to defend you with the Civil Rights Act, which outlaws racial discrimination. The road we walk is not yet done, and many trials are still ahead. But it is my belief that together we can do great things. That together we can make it all the way with LBJ!
Mr. John Kennedy.
My fellow Americans, tonight we will move our nation forward together. Our country is strong, innovative, and resilient. Yet too many Americans feel left behind and unheard. We need an economy that rewards hard workers and responsibility. But we also need a government that restores trust, strength, and our democracy, and prepares our nation for challenges in an ever-changing world. I believe America succeeds when opportunity is expanded through education, when growth is paired with responsibility, and when leadership looks to the future rather than the past. We must invest in our people, protect our freedoms, and lead with confidence in each other. With my running mate, Bill Clinton, we offer a vision rooted in growth, responsibility, and unity. The question before us is not what divides us, but what we are willing to build together for the next generation. And we have proven in the past, and we will prove again that we can build America to be great.
Mr. Donald Trump.
Good evening, my fellow Americans. As you've all noticed, jobs are fleeing, inflation is rising, and drugs and crime are brought to our cities. Because of a weak leadership that has stained our White House for decades, we cannot allow this to happen. You have the power to change that by electing a strong leader who enacted the largest tax cuts in history, built the single greatest economy, and secured our borders like no other. Because what truly matters to me are the hardworking American people who work towards a better future for our nation. I've done it before, and I'm ready to do it again. Because what matters to me are you, your families, and your friends. This election is about putting the American people in charge. As a united nation, we have the power to do so. So together, let's make America stronger, safer, and greater than ever before. Thank you.
Mr. Dwight Eisenhower.
I am Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Independent Party's Vice Presidential nominee. Fellow Americans, we are at a turning point in America's history. Our nation has never been as divided as it is today. We are a nation of ideological conflict and partisan divide. My running mate, Lyndon B. Johnson, and I are uniquely qualified to lead America at this time. Unlike the other candidates on the Republican and Democratic tickets, The independent ticket is a mixed ticket comprised of one Democrat and one Republican. Our contrasting party ideologies will balance each other which will contribute to a less partisan approach to the issues plaguing our nation today. We have worked well together in the past. During my presidential administration, Johnson served as the majority leader of the Senate. Between us, we built consensus and always tried reaching across the aisle to achieve compromise. We can and will do this again. We will cut through the political divide to move forward legislative reforms that will serve the best interest for the American people.
Mr. Bill Clinton.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Clinton. I have recently served as governor of Arkansas for 12 years before serving as your 42nd president from 1993 to 2001. And now I'm running as John Kennedy vice president. During my presidency, I fixed our economy, created free trade, created a budget surplus, and formed the longest economic expansion in American history, lasting 115 months. My political skills and my ascension position allowed me to pass significant legislation, such as the North American Free Trade Agreement and the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Act. Today, I see too many hardworking Americans being ignored by their government. They need someone who will listen and and ensure their needs are met. And there is no better person than I, so a man who has lived the exact same struggle that you live today. And side by side with John Kennedy, we'll work to balance the national budget, increase taxes on corporations and the wealthy, reduce inequality, support the middle class, make healthcare affordable and universal, lower the amount of violent crime, and ultimately restore a sense of peace and unity to the American people. You should give us a chance to bring America back to a prosperous day that we definitely need to go back to. Thank you.
Mr. Richard Nixon.
My fellow Americans, we stand before you today not as men who simply want your vote, but as men who want to improve our great nation. Our policies may be different, and it is in these differences that we ask you today to determine which of us will be best to run your country. We, Trump and I, Richard Nixon, seek to do it better than the other options. Will you have a man who splits party opinion by having a Democrat and a Republican work together? Will you have a man whose planning abilities were not ideal, as seen in the Bay of Pigs? No. You want Americans who can prove to you time and again that we will help our country through our foreign policy and through our domestic policy. Together, we will create a bright future for our people, and we hope to do that with your help. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and have a good night.
Thank you, candidates. At this time, the moderators will begin posing the questions. Will Mr. Patah and Ms. Moylan please begin with the first topic of the night, foreign policy.
Candidates, good evening. Mr. Johnson, the U.S. passport has fallen from grace, dropping out of the top 10 most powerful passports for the first time in 20 years. It is now tied with Malaysia for 12th place. What do you think has caused many non-Americans to look down on the U.S. passport? And how would your administration help repair our image abroad?
I believe it is the extreme actions of Mr. Donald Trump who has caused this crisis in our passport now. He plans to run this country like one of his businesses. He offers a cost around $1 million in 12 months. He has defaced this symbol of American pride only for his own benefit, for the rich and not the average American. I plan to rehabilitate this image of America by once again proving that there is not one man who rules this country, but it is its people that is its blood and heart. It is its people who leads this nation.
Mr. Trump?
No image to me matters. The only image that matters to me is you, the American people. And that's what I will focus on. My Trump vote visa has worked to help bring our national debt down and bring in investors who will invest in American soil.
Mr. Kennedy?
You talk about your image is for the American people, but you're taking that by taking away from what the American people have and had in the past, which is freedom. You take away from their freedom, especially when it comes with the visa. You can't taint our visa because you're putting tariffs on countries. You're siding with the enemy. You're having meetings with the enemy. You're having meetings with Putin. You're going to Korea. So of course our national image is going to come down when you're going with our enemies, and you decide that by having meetings with the enemy is going to, you're not solving anything, and you're not solving anything, and then by doing this, you taint our national image because these are people that don't want to do good things for the world.
Mr. Trump?
I speak to these certain leaders for our national security, because what matters is the American people's safety. And for you to talk about image, when you speak so much symbolism, while beginning to participate in proxy wars with Russia and bringing down America's credibility with the failed invasion of Bay of Pigs.
Mr. Clinton? Mr. Kennedy, you want to respond to that first?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The failed invasion of the Bay of Pigs was Dwight Eisenhower's fault. I came into office, he laid papers on my desk, and he said that these papers were what is going to, that this plan is what needed to happen with these papers.
Dwight Eisenhower, you want to respond to that claim?
I told you what to do, and you obviously didn't do it right, so.
You told me what to do and I did it and it failed, so obviously your plan sucks.
Mr. Clinton?
I want to piggyback off of what John Kennedy said earlier about you meeting with our enemy. While yes, I did the same thing. I met with our enemy. When I met with our enemy, I actually worked to create solutions that help the people, not just in our country, but in the country, in their own country. But when you go and meet with people like Putin, you try and maintain that little friendship you have over the needs of those who you're supposed to be negotiating for, like such as in Ukraine. When you meet with Putin, you don't never accomplish anything. You're not finding any solution to stopping this unnecessary conflict that's going on in Ukraine, such as the economic sanctions that you place that hold no meaning.
To speak on that further, together, me and Bill Clinton will rebuild trust by being predictable and honest with our allies. We will also strengthen at-home matters too by having a stable democracy and a strong economy that makes America persuasive.
Mr. Trump, and then we have to move on to the next question. Mr. Nixon, you can add.
Bill Clinton, you speak on my foreign policy with Russia, but I bring unpredictable, aggressive action against Russia to further stop conflict between Russia and Ukraine. And you speak on your foreign policy, but in Iran, in Somalia, Operation Black Hawk, you had 18 American soldiers die. And then you continue, and maybe you should focus more on your image abroad as you lied under oath.
Mr. Nixon, then we have to move on to the next question.
I'd like to say that our meetings with foreign powers have not been simply friendship. We have been meeting with them so that we can form diplomatic relations and restore our country's standing with the nations of the world. Through these meetings, we have been negotiating, and through these meetings, we will create more allies for our nation and stronger ties with the world as a whole, both friends and enemies, as I did back in my presidency.
All right, we are going to move on to question number 2. 80 years since its founding, the United Nations Secretary General has called on world leaders to recommit to the principles that gave rise to the United Nations by saying, quote, "The United Nations is more than a meeting place. It is a moral compass." Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Trump has repeatedly stated that the United Nations is, quote, "not even coming close to living up to that potential," end quote. Do you agree or disagree with Mr. Trump? Why?
I do agree with Mr. Trump. And this is because the UN needs to be used to prevent wars, coordinate disaster relief, and build coalitions. We need to push reforms for transparency and effectiveness. But do not walk away if force is ever needed. I think one of the problems with the UN is that we cannot use force if it is needed. And I think that causes a lot of issues and that put us in situations, especially my fellow Bill Clinton, when it comes to genocide. The UN could not do anything, which put him in a terrible situation. And I think legitimacy matters, and I don't think the UN is legitimate today. Thank you.
Mr. Trump?
As I said before, the United Nations needs to pay their fair share to the U.S. They have relied upon us for decades upon decades. And what have they done? During JFK's presidency, the Cold War happened. Proxy wars in Vietnam, NATO was not there to help stop it. Instead, he dumped more money, increasing our national debt. It is time we need to reform the UN and make sure they start paying their fair share to helping protect the world.
Mr. Clinton?
Yeah, I agree that the UN doesn't live up to the standards that we believe it should be, and it using force. But I believe that what we can do about it as a nation, as America, as one of the most powerful countries in the world, we should be leading the efforts to reform the UN, because we are very strong in this world, in America. There are countries that look to us for help in times of crisis, and so it's up to us to lead this coalition of nations that we call the UN to do what we need to do to get done.
Mr. Nixon? And then we will wrap it up and move on to our next question.
You both have spoken about reforming the UN, but neither of you have provided anything of substance that we should do here. Should we hold a convention? Should we get all the countries together and discuss how we can more effectively protect everybody? I think we should, but neither of you have proposed any idea on how to actually circumvent our current issues with the UN and get us to where we need to be.
Let's move on to the next question. In October 2025, Trump was honored with the Richard Nixon Foundation Architect of Peace Award. This prestigious award celebrates those who advance Nixon's lifelong goal of fostering global peace. Mr. Nixon, can you please explain your foundation's decision to bestow such an honor on Mr. Trump? Mr. Eisenhower, do you think that Donald Trump should have been honored with such a distinguished award? Why or why not?
Trump received my award not because of any other actions he's committed, but solely due to his foreign affairs. He has created 8 ceasefires through various means, And through doing so, he has reached a peace in multiple different countries. Additionally, he has been using diplomacy when applicable, leading to his receiving my award and allowing him to have the honor that it gives him.
Mr. Eisenhower.
He does not deserve this award. The war in Ukraine and Russia is still ongoing with no end in sight. He's appeasing Putin, and appeasing a dictator does not give results.
Mrs. Kennedy.
Trump is as the way Eisenhower said, Trump is appeasing a dictator. And we're giving him awards, and you think these awards are results. Awards are not results, Donald Trump.
Donald Trump, you want to respond?
Oh, yeah. You say I've created appeasement, but I've not done no such. I've increased sanctions to Russia, and for Eisenhower and JFK to talk about my cause wars, Eisenhower fell into World War I because he was pressured by bankers. Bankers had loaned money to the UK and France, and they wanted their money back. So you joined the war, causing millions of Americans to die. JFK engaged in a Cold War and escalated situations in Vietnam, which escalated to furthermore thousands of Americans dying.
Mr. Kennedy, you have a response?
The Cold War position I came into office having to deal with that situation. And then you are starting a war over oil with Venezuela. But you claim it's because of drug lords and a corrupt government.
Candidates, we will get to Venezuela. Let's stay on subject. Mr. Johnson, did you have something you want to say?
May I point out an inaccuracy within the claim of Mr. Trump? Mr. Trump claims that the U.S. entered World War I because of Eisenhower doing. Eisenhower was just a soldier at his time. He was still learning, and it was in no way connected to Eisenhower. We were forced into World War I after Germany got sinking U.S. shipping with the sinking of ships like Lusitania, leading to hundreds of casualties. We were forced into World War I, not by bankers, but harmed the U.S.
Mr. Trump.
Not to say World War II. But I would also like to say, Lyndon B. Johnson was one of the biggest powers in Vietnam. During his presidency, he sent over 50,000 Americans to die in Vietnam, horrible deaths by the Vietnamese.
Mr. Johnson.
Those lines still haunt me to this day. Lance Corporal John Harrison Howley of Indianapolis, born this day, 1945, died April 11, 1967. Lance Corporal Anthony Warren Grundy of Mississippi, Oklahoma, born this day, 1947, died July 7, 1968. Gary Allen Farlow of North Olmsted, Ohio, born this day, 1947, and died May 12, 1967. These are the people you besmirch, you insult by bringing up this number. This is nothing more than a talking point to me. To me, this is a living sacrifice that lives with me, and it lives still in my mind to this day. In your first presidency, you had a total of 63 deaths. Can you name one of them? Can you name any of them? These are American lives you're talking about. But dead Americans to you, that's just Tuesday.
Mr. Clinton.
Mr. Trump, you believe that you deserve this award, this peace award, but in response to China, you've modernized nuclear, you've implemented nuclear modernization, a new missile defense system, and advanced technologies such as AI and quantum computing to use for our military forces. So, if you're investing in these kinds of things that are known to lead to war, why should you deserve this peace award?
Mr. Trump.
three things. Lyndon B. Johnson, if you really cared about those Americans, why'd you send them so quick to their deaths? Bill Clinton, you talk about me not deserving any peace awards, but you couldn't even call a genocide a genocide. You let 3 go by in your presidency without any moral. And I achieved the Abraham Accords between Israel, a historical peace that hasn't been seen in over 80 plus years.
Mr. Clinton, you want to respond to that?
Did you know that after the massacre in Bosnia, I actually facilitated the Dayton Peace Accord to end that civil war over there in Bosnia? I was immediately after. And then I sent 20,000 troops to join a coalition of 40,000 other troops, of 60,000 troops with between the NATO countries to enforce the peace agreement. And since then, we haven't seen anything such as any sort of violent crisis happen in Bosnia.
Mr. Dixon, then we have to move on.
I'm gonna start this with saying Eisenhower looks like they've been left out of this. Eisenhower has not unsuccessfully incited one coup in Guatemala and created the Iranian coup, which created so much instability in that region. I think this all shows us that none of these people have had their share of peace. All of them have been involved in some conflict at some point. And as they should all agree, at some times violence is the only answer to get the peace that we deserve.
All right, next question. This question is for both Bill Clinton and Dwight Eisenhower. Mr. Clinton, if you would be so kind to answer it first, followed by Mr. Eisenhower. According to The Economist, 1 year after a lightning rebel offensive overthrew Syria's tyrant, Bashar al-Assad, Syria has not tipped into chaos like Iraq and Libya did after foreign interventions. Instead, a country that was once a despotic client of Iran and Russia is now trying to join the Middle East's pro-Western camp. Trump acknowledged Syria's new leader, Ahmed al-Shira, controversial past as a former Al-Qaeda fighter with a $10 million U.S. bounty on his head, noting, quote, "He has had a rough past. Frankly, if you didn't have a rough past, you wouldn't have a chance," end quote. Trump has removed al-Shira and some of his ministers from the U.S. terrorist designation list. He claims this marks a significant diplomatic pivot towards bringing Syria, quote, back into the international community, end quote. Do you agree with Trump's course of action? Why or why not?
I do not agree with his course of action. Because since we have known that during Barack Obama's time in Syria, we've seen what happened. We've seen how it has collapsed, and it collapsed into complete total chaos. And today it still is, was just like that. And the way I handled Syria during my presidency, my policy was focused heavily on integrating then President Hafez al-Assad into the Middle East peace effort with Israel, involving direct presidential engagement, summits in Damascus and Geneva, and efforts to broker a deal and Golan Heights withdrawal in exchange for peace. And however, it ultimately failed because of my administration. I'm sorry. However, it ultimately failed. But I did press Syria on big issues such as their drug smuggling and their support of the terrorist group Hezbollah.
Mr. Eisenhower, you may now respond.
Ahmed al-Shara is not doing enough to get ISIS and to build ISIS out of Syria or to build infrastructure. In moments of chaos, we need a leader who doesn't react but responds. Plus, he's former Al-Qaeda. Can we really trust him?
Mr. Kennedy?
As Dwight Eisenhower just said, we do need a leader that doesn't just react and respond right away. Donald Trump tries to jump into conclusions, especially in Syria. And I didn't jump into conclusions during the Cold War. During the Cold War, I stood firm. And if you want to go further, during the Berlin Wall, I stood firm. And I was a young president coming in, and they thought that I would get pushed away by the Soviet Union and like a little flea on a shirt. Instead, I stood strong and I debated and I pushed our troops forward towards Russia, towards the Soviet Union, and didn't stand down and actually had them, they stood down.
Mr. Trump, would you like to respond?
Oh, yeah. My question to you, my fellow Americans, do we want presidents who try to reshape the world? Do we want presidents who focus on other countries but our own? That's not how it should be. Diplomacy should protect Americans. It should provide national security. By aligning with Syria in this current moment has marked a historical memory. In over 30 years, Syria has been in constant conflict through a revolution. But now they are willing to ally with America and work towards peace terms. This is a new step for peace in our world. And that's what I do, achieve peace.
Thank you, Mr. Trump. Let's move on to the next question. Mr. Kennedy, the current administration has stated that it does not rule out U.S. troops on the ground in Nigeria over claims of, quote, the killing of Christians. Trump is quoted as saying, the United States cannot stand by while such atrocities are happening in Nigeria and numerous other countries. He says we stand ready, willing, and able to save our great Christian population around the world. Under what conditions should the United States intervene in the domestic affairs of foreign countries?
Well, first off, I would like to say, as a religious person myself, I take religious persecution very seriously, and I treat it as a human rights issue. I do not treat it as a campaign talking point.
Mr. Trump.
Religious freedom is a right of man and should not be persecuted. These Christians that are dying in Nigeria is an ethnic cleansing. We cannot allow this to happen, unlike other presidents, such as Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton, you want to respond?
If I believe what you're referring to is the crisis in Rwanda, where I acknowledge that I failed in not intervening and helping the moderate Hutu and those who did align with the Hutu extremists that were murdering them day by day. And I acknowledge that, and afterwards, I actually worked with NATO to send relief, and in 1998, when I visited Rwanda, I publicly apologized for my inaction and committed $2 million to help the genocide survivors.
Mr. Trump? Go ahead, Mr. Kennedy.
Well, you keep attacking Bill Clinton, but he's my vice president. I brought him on for economics, not for foreign policy.
Mr. Trump.
So you're a president with no foreign policy and only domestic policy? Bill Clinton, you speak on Rwanda, but that was already after 800,000 Tutsis were dead. a genocide when the intelligence was laid out on your desk that a genocide was happening currently in Rwanda. Instead, you chose to ignore it and ignore your morals.
Mr. Nixon, then we have to move on.
A mere apology is not enough to excuse the fact that he did not act. He has to do something, and if he doesn't, then that just shows us his weakness in his foreign policy. If he's just here for the economy, what does he bring to the table in any other situation? Is he just here to be for John Kennedy to brag about what he was able to do and not himself?
Mr. Clinton, do you want to respond to that?
So, I understand that how you feel, and saying that an apology isn't simply enough, but I've already said that I worked with the Western Alliance to send relief funds to Rwanda to help deal with genocide survivors. And I did publicly apologize for my inaction, and I learned from that, which is what led to my success in Boston, and what led to my relative success in Boston.
Again, you're attacking my vice president. I will be the president, and I've shown before and will show again that I will take course of action when it is needed.
Mr. Trump, and then we are moving on.
You speak on your foreign action, but all you did was engage in proxy wars, never ending them. You escalated war in Vietnam, you failed to ban pigs invasion, which left CIA operatives captured and later executed.
Next topic.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fatah, Ms. Moylan, and candidates. We will now move on to the second topic of the night, American unity, with Mrs. Berger and Mr. Gold posing the questions to the candidates.
Leading candidates. Mr. Trump, only on the American electorate reflects that there is a great deal of divisiveness in our country. If you are elected, there will still be millions of people who did not vote for you and who do not support very specific policies of yours. How will you and your administration bring such a divided country together if elected again?
We are going to enact better policies that better help the American people, the struggling minorities, to lower and middle class people. We are going to enact policies that help build our economy, increase wages, increase our wealth, and enact the largest tax cuts ever again.
Mr. Clinton?
You mean tax cuts on the wealthy?
Trump, do you want to answer that? And then we'll go to the next one.
You say tax cuts on the wealthy, but it actually enacted on the lower and middle class. And actually, the wages grew 3.2% in 2019 to the lower and middle class.
Mr. Nixon?
It is through the middle class that we wish to unite our country. If we focus solely on the rich, like Clinton is implying that we've done, then we do nothing but alienate ourselves from the middle class. They are what has built America, and they are what matters. And so they are who we will help.
Mr. Johnson?
May I point out a discrepancy within the policy on this issue? You say you want to support minorities, except that right now outside these doors, they are being hunted down. People are being put in cages. You are separating families, cutting contact with the outside world, not saying people were handed afterwards, and sending them around the country they don't even have any correlation to. And expanding on this, you plan to cut SNAP, which provides food aid to those in need. And we have to point out, a large number of those in need are also minorities.
Trump, would you just respond?
You speak on my immigration policy, but but we are taking down criminals who have brought drugs and crime into our cities. And you speak on my immigration targeting minorities. When you chose to have a vice president who has the largest deportation operation known as Operation Bloodbath that specifically targeted Latin American minorities and deported citizens.
May I point out, this was not the direct policy of the U.S. This was a result of U.S. companies violating our own immigration laws. Mexican immigrants were coming to the U.S. and working illegally under companies that favored them because they were cheaper. We simply enforced our policy and clamped down on the exploitation of Mexican immigrants.
Mr. Clinton, would you like to answer, please?
Mr. Trump, you do the same thing that you claim was, you say somebody else was targeting Latin Americans and deporting them, but that's the exact same thing you're doing today. Because under your policy, they don't even identify themselves to the people that they're taking into custody. And on top of that, they're using excessive force on those who don't even pose a threat to armed men who hide their faces in an attempt to not face personal criticism.
Mr. Trump, would you like to answer that?
I specifically increased ICE activity to specifically go after criminals who bring drugs and crime to our city. I've secured our borders to further stop this increased rate of crime and drugs. I have told ICE specifically to target those criminals.
Thank you. We're going to go on to the next question.
Good evening, candidates. Deputies, as you are all aware, Lyndon Johnson has repeatedly argued that 3 out of 4 of his competitors, Bill Clinton, Richard Nixon, and Donald Trump, should never again be given the chance to occupy the office of President of the United States, because they all, in some way or another, have been accused of obstruction of justice. How would each of you counter such criticism from Lyndon Johnson? We'll start with Bill Clinton, followed by Richard Nixon, and then Donald Trump.
When I faced impeachment for obstruction of justice, I was simply lying. I only lied about my personal life, which had no effect on the American people. In no way was our economy affected, was our foreign policy affected, was anything that was even remotely related to the American people harmed by my actions that led to my impeachment. However, you've been impeached. You have been impeached twice, and once for even inciting a riot on January 6th back in 2021, when you when alleged that you caused the riot in an attempt to stay in office and make yourself a king.
All right. We'll go to other candidates, but we need to go in order.
The events that took place were a shame on our nation. However, what I did was merely protect some young men who did something wrong that I did not even tell them to do. I did not want them to have accidentally ruined their lives due to the mistakes of some of my cabinet members. Yes, it might not have been correct. However, I did what I believe to be right to allow our nation to heal and to focus on problems that were not caused by people who shouldn't have been giving orders in the first place.
Bill Clinton, you speak on my introduction, but I never lied under oath. You lied under oath. We don't know what other things you could have lied about. The riot you talk about was simply me talking to the supporters about how unfair the election was. And they wanted to uphold our democracy.
Pass it to President Eisenhower.
You have claimed that your indiscretions with women is an entirely private matter, but I'm here to tell you that you're wrong, Mr. Clinton. When you prey on women in your position as governor of Arkansas and as president of the United States, that's a public matter, and it's because it is predatory behavior. During your presidency, you were sued by Paula Jones, a state Arkansas employee, for harassing her while you were governor of Arkansas. You had to pay her almost $1 million to settle the suit and shut her up. Your extramarital bad behavior is not a private matter when you use your position in office to force unwanted advances upon women. If you worked in any private corporation in this nation, you would have been fired for your behavior. Don't insult me and the country by dismissing your predatory behavior as entirely private matter. Not only did you cheat on your wife, but you cheated on the nation, Mr. Clinton.
Will Mr. Clinton respond? Mr. Kennedy, and then we'll let President Johnson talk about his initial accusations.
My actions were not predatory. Because my actions were consensual between me and another adult woman whose friend had accused me of sexual harassment and other crimes. And as a matter of fact, after I faced my impeachment trial, my popularity skyrocketed. So, what now?
Richard,
Mr. Kennedy, and President Johnson. Richard Nixon, you say that you didn't know about this until everyone else did, when there was leaked tapes from your office that you tried to hide from the court, by the way, of you talking to the men and to other people about what took place in Watergate.
To speak of the original accusations now, I simply view it as, I believe that people should be forgiven for their mistakes and forgiven for the crimes. But to commit crimes while being the leader of an entire nation, to obstruct justice while being at the helm, it is simply unforgivable. That is not a mistake. That is endangering the entire country as a whole.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our next question. Mr. Johnson, many Americans consider candidates of the Independent Party to be spoilers. What do you have to say to those Americans, and what makes you different from your Republican and Democratic competitors?
We are no spoilers. I have come together to unite the two warring parties. Because right now, there are millions and millions of Americans, and they expect to be represented by just two parties. And even back then, during the days of founding fathers, they saw a danger within factionalism. How we are different is that we are flexible. We are able to move, we are able to compromise. Unlike these two, I'm sorry, shows.
Mr. Eisenhower, would you like to add to that?
Johnson and I have joined forces as Democrat and Republican to get the job done. We don't have the problems that the two other presidential and vice presidential candidates have. We will work together for the betterment of the nation.
Mr. Nixon?
By having a Democrat and a Republican work together in this way, will you not just do what presidents do when they alternate back and forth between terms? Will you not just undo what each other wants to do simply because your personal beliefs disagree with them? Eisenhower, you're strictly anti-LGBTQ rights, whereas Lyndon Johnson would have been in favor of them. This is one conflict that you two will have given our modern day. This is merely one of them. There will be countless more, and it will happen while both of you try to better our country, and neither of you will get very far if you continue this.
Would either of you like to, one of you two, please respond?
Me and Johnson were friends, you could say, when I was the president and he was majority leader in the Senate. We worked together very well. And on the LGBTQ, I would work with Johnson to find a median to have both of what we want to make it work.
Mr. Clinton. You talk about doing things for the LGBTQ community, but how do you explain the lack of experience? How do you explain all the LGBTQ students that were being harassed and assaulted every day during your presidency?
And we're gonna hold off there. Move on to our next question.
Mr. Trump, your competitors have claimed that another Trump administration would negatively impact the social and economic programs that benefit senior citizens. They claim that you want to cut Medicare and Medicaid benefits and increase the required age for retirement. Is this accurate? If not, please clarify to the American voters how you cater to the needs of senior citizens.
I've repealed Obamacare and applied individual mandate expansion. For short-term, lower-cost plans, over 10 million citizens around the country gain coverage through cheaper alternatives. I want to provide a healthcare system that provides transparency.
Mr. Kennedy?
I think that protecting these programs is the right way to go about it, because by protecting the programs, we are keeping the rights of the citizens of America. Donald Trump, I think there is something to say about changing them and making them cheaper, but the way to go about it is not to slash them first and take them away from the people.
Mr. Johnson?
May I also point out, you say cheaper, despite this, you've taken $1 trillion away from the health program, and yet threatened to add $4 trillion to the national debt during the same time. That directly goes against what you're saying about cheaper.
Would you like to respond?
More people gain coverage, and we're providing cheaper healthcare. We slowed healthcare inflation. Unlike you, Lyndon B. Johnson, when you expanded coverage in 1965, but Medicaid tripled in cost for the American citizens.
Mr. Kennedy?
You keep talking about cost when you're one of the one percenter businessman that has millions of dollars and wants to spend those millions of dollars on a little birthday parade.
Either Mr. Trump or Mr. Nixon.
To let you know, that birthday parade was out of my own money. And my experience in a wealthy business is I know more about the economy than you do.
Mr. Nixon, and then we need to move on.
I would like to add to what he's previously stated. One of our initiatives in order to make healthcare more accessible is to give the American citizen directly money. Imagine, instead of paying a hefty healthcare premium every month and every year, you get a sum of money at the start of every year that if you don't use though, roll into the next year, allowing you to save up money. And if you ever have a problem with health that is big enough, you have the savings that you've had over the years in a special account specifically to make sure that you remain healthy.
Mr. Kennedy, do you want to add to the conversation?
I'm gonna pass the mic to Bill Clinton so he can explain to you how we'll make the greatest economy.
Alright, so obviously, under my presidency, I had the best economy in American history. I had the longest period of economic expansion in all of American history. That lasted 115 months, which was actually about 10 years. Almost 10 years. So what we'll do, what me and JFK will do, like I said earlier, we'll cut taxes we'll increase taxes on the wealthy, will support the middle class and raise the income, so that way they can be able to afford the housing and the medical bill that you keep increasing, and will create tax burden fairness and to ensure Social Security and Medicare protection.
Thank you, Mr. Gold and candidates. The next round of questions will be asked by Mr. Patah regarding the Supreme Court.
Mr. Eisenhower, if there were a vacancy on the U.S. Supreme Court, what characteristics would you and Mr. Johnson look for in a potential nominee to fill the vacancy? Why?
I would choose a moderate and strict constructionist who follows the literal words of the Constitution and seeks the original intent of the drafters.
Mr. Trump?
I agree with what Eisenhower says. To have Supreme Justice who follow the Constitution by word and establish and interpret these laws.
Mr. Kennedy?
I will nominate a qualified ethical judge who respects constitutional limits, avoid making a court purely a partisan. Who will also have an emphasis on stability and national confidence in jurisdiction.
I'm in agreement with Mr. Kennedy on nominating a highly qualified judge who is ethical and follows the Constitution, such as the late and great Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Mr. Johnson?
I concur with the requirements of my vice president, but I will also add that I would like a judge who would communicate with both houses so that they may find issues in legislation before they become issues.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
All right, thank you, Mr. Patah and candidates. The next question will be asked by Mrs. Berger regarding Veterans Affairs.
All right, Mr. Johnson, during this campaign, you've received a lot of criticism on your handling of the Vietnam War. Both Kennedy and Trump have claimed that your decision to dramatically escalate the Vietnam War and to also prioritize the Great Society domestic spending at the same time inadequately prepared the nation's Veterans Affairs system to handle the influx of returning soldiers and their unique medical and social needs. Kennedy and Trump both argue that because of your actions, you are directly responsible for the long-term inadequacies in veteran care, particularly concerning the invisible wounds of war like PTSD. What is your response to their claims?
May I point out that I needed to focus both at home and the foreign stage. I am a president. I cannot just focus on one or the other. I need to focus on both. And second, the Great Society was a set of social programs that helped all American citizens. It was in my mind that these programs would be strong enough to support both the civilian as well as the veteran population. It was only after my presidency that these programs started becoming weakened and slashed, that they became ineffective in properly administering aid.
Mr. Kennedy, response?
Well, first off, it comes with the job to handle multiple things, but I think that Veterans Affairs are sacred obligations. I think we should expand healthcare access, reduce waiting times, and strengthen the mental health support. I think we should improve job training, house support, and transition programs.
Mr. Nixon.
Through what you've done, Lyndon Johnson, you entrenched us so deeply in the Vietnam War that it took me 4 years to get elevate.
Mr. Trump?
You speak about your Great Society programs and your love for our American soldiers. When you sent them off to die, and those who survived came back to inadequate programs that were underfunded compared to all your other programs that helped Americans. What I did was instead did the VA Accountability and Choice Acts, making care easier for veterans and mental illness checks more often.
Mr. Johnson, would like to respond?
To address Mr. Nixon first, it was not because of my actions that we were entrenched. You were so vehemently convinced that increasing violence in Vietnam would end the war quicker. That's why you approved bombing in Cambodia and Laos. And to address Mr. Trump, these programs were not underfunded. It is simply because of their development and their growth at the time that we were not able to adequately provide. If they had been able to be powered by my plan, they would have been able to properly provide, but they weren't. They were never followed through to the way I would have done.
All right, Mr. Nixon, you can respond to that, and then we have last response before I break.
Those bombings were the predecessor to Vietnamization. They came specifically to allow the people of Vietnam a chance for when we left the war. Through leaving it, we would leave them with many fewer warriors. And so, in order to ensure that they would not lose instantly, we had to weaken North Vietnam. We did not increase the conflict through doing this. We allowed ourselves to find peace instead.
Thank you, Mrs. Berger and candidates. We will now take a 10-minute break, and we will resume with the second round of questions afterward.